Welcome to the latest episode of Honest Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about the TNEC 58 by the New Everything Company. I've been riding this skate for approximately a month. I have rode it at ledges, I've also skated it at various skate parks. And I've even skated some handrails on it. I never said I skated the handrails well in it. I just said I've skated handrails in it. When the TNEC 58 was first announced, I wasn't really that convinced by it. Duran Bickmore did not the best job of selling it. He was a bit unclear about sizing. I wasn't so sure I bought his philosophy about it, but after interviewing Duran on Platform Podcast and skating the Michael Craft frames, I was really intrigued by this skate for several reasons. One, because I wanted to support him because I think he's a really nice guy and I think he's got some great ideas. And when the actual product shots of this started coming out, I was fully sold on the aesthetic. And when I saw footage of people like Duran and Michael Craft skating these, I was like, yep, sign me up. I've got to try a pair of these. So I parted ways with some hard-earned money, over £200. Got myself a pair of these. This looks slightly different to the stock option that you can get. The stock option comes with pink wheels and TNEC's own just kind of stock liner. This is the local custom setup that Local Skates offer. It comes with 58mm revolver wheels, revolver bearings and laced Local Skates collaboration laces. I think that's what they're called. There are several reasons why I bought this. It's got the 90s raised heel boot aesthetic, which if you started skating in the 90s, you'll be well aware of it with skates like the Majestic 12, the Rollerblade Tarmac, the Trooper, all those kind of models. And I absolutely loved that era of skating and just the way those skates looked. This mold in particular was used by Razors for their Impact skate, which was relatively popular. It was around about the time that Josh Petty and Marco Heinze and Rafael Sandoz skated for Razors, if you can remember that far back. But I'm getting sidetracked. The reason I went for this is because I like the look of the shell. It's really simple. It does look kind of unfinished to my eye. This rectangle here, if you started skating in the 90s, you'll be used to seeing a logo in there like Rollerblade or Rosie's. But if you didn't start during that era and you had no knowledge of that, that just looks perfectly normal. Another thing that attracted me to this skate was the sole frame. So this is all one piece, the sole plate and the frame, and it's riveted on, which means you've got better energy transfer and you're not going to lose things like screws and bolts and washers and all that kind of jazz and have the annoying process of looking around the skate park floor or the street floor trying to find them. As I mentioned, I've skated the TNEC frame before, and this sole frame is based on the TNEC design. It's very similar to the TNEC 58 frames that come aftermarket, like the Michael Craft or the Coconut or the black ones or whatever, but it comes with a deeper groove, and that is so it's more beginner friendly and so there's less break-in time. It's also worth mentioning that this is not made out of the same plastic as the aftermarket TNEC frames. The TNEC frames, like the Michael Craft or the Coconut or whatever, they come in a much harder plastic. I asked Duran about this and if it was made of the same material, and he said no, it had to be slightly softer because they did test out a harder material and it kept cracking and breaking on them, and they just wanted something that obviously wasn't going to put them in that position, and they found that the best option was to make it a little bit softer. And if you're wondering why the aesthetic of the sole plate looks slightly familiar, that is because it's based on the Valo sole plate, or what it's used for now, it's used for the Rosie's Fifth Element. I absolutely loved that sole plate on Valo and the Fifth Element. The thing that I didn't like about it was how heavy it was and how bottom heavy it made the skate. Particularly on the Roce's Fifth Element, it really torques and contorts the skate, and you can easily just flop your foot over to the side, which means it's kind of taking away ankle support just because the boot is so light and the sole plate is so heavy. They have found a way to get around that problem by completely reducing the weight, making this really thin. And what I'm most impressed about is how unbelievably well this fits the skate. This fits all the way around with no gaps whatsoever. It makes it look like this sole frame was made at the same time as this skate, as if this was made for this, not that it's an afterthought and this came decades before it. Some companies who have been around in the industry for years cannot make sole plates fit their own skate. The New Everything company managed to do it straight out the gate, and that is wildly impressive. And last but not least, the thing that I liked most about it is just how simple it is. There's nothing fancy, nothing too technical, nothing complicated. The cuff is riveted on, the buckle is riveted on, and the sole frame is riveted on. It is one of the simplest skates you can get on the market, and it's one of the lightest skates on the market. Now, the weight of a skate doesn't tend to bother me that much. If it's heavy, if it's light, it doesn't really affect my user experience that much. But I know for some people that is important. And if that's what you value in a skate, this is as light as it comes. Despite happily parting ways with some of my hard-earned money for these, I did have some concerns. First off, I was worried about the fit. Either that they'd be too narrow, or they'd be too short, or they'd pinch in certain areas. And at first, when Duran was promoting these, he wasn't that great about giving detailed sizing. It was a bit kind of vague and up in the air, and he was comparing it to them 909 shell sizes. So I was a bit unclear of whether or not I would get the right skate. In terms of fit, it is absolutely perfect. I'm a size 10 UK shoe. I wear a size 285 Mondo. I can fit in 9.5 Sways, Aeons, barely get into a standard Omni, the size large, but it really hurts. And I can fit into a them 909 with this liner and nothing else. This fits perfect. And the reason for that is because it's a lot wider than it seems. Most raised heel boots of this era, like the Cull or the Roce's Majestic 12, they are quite narrow fitting. This is surprisingly wide, and it's also got a really generous, and if you'll notice, a really high toe box area. So I'm a size 10 and I can easily fit into the 910 shell. If you were a size 10 and a half UK, I think you could probably still get into this because I've definitely got wiggle room. I doubt I would be able to get into the shell size smaller because that is quite a drop down. The shell size smaller than this is an 8-9. But if you're like me and you've got big feet or you've got wide feet, this is very accommodating. My second concern about this skate was the buckle, and that is because it's just one of the kind of cheap stock buckles that you would get on Razors or the standard Omni or old rollerblade models. It just kind of clicks into place. Because it's riveted in, you can replace it, but it means getting the rivets out, then buying your own buckle, then attaching all the screws, and that is a bit of a faff. It's not that difficult, but it is annoying. And on first impressions of this buckle protector, it did seem just not very great. It seemed like it would wear away really quickly, and as you can see, it has worn away a fair amount, and I was just worried that within a few sessions I would snap this off, have to do some minor surgery on it, and that would kind of defeat the whole purpose behind this skate of being really simple, really easy to use, really easy to maintain. And last, my other concern was that it would just kind of feel as cheap as it looks. It does look like a very simple, no-frills skate, and I was worried that when you're rolling around it would feel a bit hollow or rattly or wouldn't perform too great and would just feel really, really budget. But as I mentioned, on first impressions when I took them out the box, I was really impressed with the build quality, especially how well they've managed to make the sole frame fit onto the skate. I know that the stock wheels that come with this are absolutely rubbish, the pink ones. Duran has been very open and transparent about that. He says they'll do to get you started, or if you're a hobbyist, or if you're a complete beginner. If you're not, if you're someone with a little bit more experience or someone who punishes their skates a little bit more, you're gonna want to upgrade, which is why I went for the local option. As for the liner as well, it's just your standard stock liner, which is no better or worse than any other stock liner that you get in that price bracket, but it came with a kind of thin, really just quite rubbish feeling material on the padding, and the stock insole that comes with this skate is utterly rubbish. It's just really thin and soft and wouldn't offer any support or comfort, so I wouldn't recommend going with the stock liner. But most people who are not beginner skaters and are buying a new pair of skates will probably already have a liner that they know and trust. And if you're on the smaller end of this shell, you can use a bulky one to fill out the space. If you're like me and you're at the top end of the shell, you can use a really thin performance one and you should be okay. And I absolutely love the look down of this skate. I have tried a bunch of skates this year, too many skates in fact, and this is by far my favourite look down. It's just got that classic 90s look, really simple, not too jarring, and in my opinion, the look down on a skate does matter. If you look down at your skates and you think these suck, you're not going to enjoy skating them. If you look down at your skates and you're hyped on them and you're like, they look great, you will skate better in them because you'll be more confident, you'll enjoy them more, you'll be proud to skate around in them. If you're skating around in skates that make you feel embarrassed or uncomfortable, you're not going to perform as well as you would if you're skating on skates that you're excited by. My only other concern before trying these was the lack of backslide groove. It has just got a little kind of notch there, which is good because it allows you to create your own backslide groove. But if you're like me, you will create one good backslide groove on your Royale side, which that one looks great. If you're also like me, you will create a terrible one on your non-dominant foot, and it's just got all these little notches that don't ever really go anywhere and it looks terrible. That is all my fault. But if TNEC actually offered me the option of having a backslide groove there, I would be less inclined to make a rubbish one. So if you think about it, technically it's TNEC's fault that I make a terrible groove in my non-dominant foot, because if they made a better groove, I wouldn't have had the option to. Anyway, that's enough of me rambling. Here is some footage of me skating these at various street spots and parks. Sometimes I skated them for as little as an hour or two, sometimes I skated them for up to 4 to 5 hours, and I had no pain or discomfort whatsoever. So have a look. As you can see, I've had loads of sessions on these and landed a bunch of tricks. I've also had quite a few slams. The first thing I'll say about this skate is I've been so impressed, overly impressed with just how well they fit and how quickly they felt at home. I've tried so many skates this year and all of them had a bit of a break-in period and took some adjustment. With certain skates, every session I had to take about an hour to get comfortable on the skate. With this, within about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it instantly felt like home. And that is because it's got familiar elements that a lot of people will already know. It's got the raised heel boot, which if you've skated any 90s skates, you'll already have a vague understanding of. It's got the Valo / Rossi's Fifth Element inspired sole plate, which if you've skated Valos or you've skated Fifth Elements, you'll be more than aware of. And as I've mentioned before in a previous review, I really like the TNEC frame. I think it's got a lot of endearing qualities. So as far as I was concerned, it was a win, win, win. As a result of having a riveted on sole frame, the energy transfer was great. I also really like the hardness of the plastic. It's hard enough so that it offers support and you can't just flop the skate over, but it's soft enough that royales and topsides don't feel like too much of an effort. So you do have to bend your knees a little to get into that royale or topside position, but you don't feel like you have to force it. I've already raved about how much I love this sole plate on other models. I love it just as much on this. It fits perfectly to the boot and it's got all the advantages that the Valo and Fifth Element sole plate have without any of the negatives. So it's nice and wide, it locks on well, you feel really balanced and comfortable, but it doesn't have the insane weight that the Valo and Fifth Element sole plate has. And as you can probably see from that footage, it slid very, very well. In some instances it slid too well and I wiped out, but no complaints about how fast they are on ledges, rails, coping, etc. And the best attribute of this skate is I could skate it for hours and hours and hours with no pain or discomfort whatsoever. In most models, I will get a kind of pinch or I'll get toe jams or it'll be slightly too small for me. Because of the generous toe box, there was none of that, and because it's nice and wide, I didn't get any pressure points. I did get a little bit of rubbing on the inside where the cuff rivet is, where the receiver is, and that's just because it's a little bit ridged and I've got really bony ankles. So that was a little bit noticeable at first, but it didn't develop into an issue like it did with the standard Omni. And after a little while, maybe the plastic kind of softened up or moved out a little bit, I don't know, but it was there, it was noticeable for the first few sessions, and then it just went away. One negative I did notice about the skate is even though it has a deeper groove on this than it does on the aftermarket frames, it still needs broken in. For the first like 2 or 3 sessions, I was slipping off like Unities and Favres and Royales and just wasn't that comfortable on them. And that's because even though it's deeper, there's still like this kind of line. It's not tapered. It does need kind of broken in just so you can get a comfortable your own version of a groove, essentially. And although I didn't manage my magic trick of breaking pretty much every buckle on every skate that I use, I didn't manage to do it on this one. But you can see here, if you look very closely, that the buckle protector is wearing away, and it is wearing away quite fast. I noticed that after the first couple of sessions, because the plastic is quite thin here, it's not that long before the buckle is exposed, and because it's riveted on, if you break it, that is going to be just a little bit more annoying than a standard buckle to replace because you have to get the rivets out. And the only other negative I would say about the skate isn't actually related to the skate, it's the wheels. Now, revolver wheels are fine, but I don't really think this profile is ideal for this type of frame. So the revolver wheels are quite flat. Well, mine's are cone now because I've been skating them so much. You can probably see it better here. They're quite flat, but then they're just rounded at the edges. This, as a result, I think made it feel slower than if they were rounded. And with this type of frame, I know that TNEC recommend different profiles. They recommend either using a round profile, bullet profile, or tapered profile wheel. I have used the undercover Sam Crofts wheels in TNECs before, and they were brilliant. They're nice and round. And I've also used the Mushroom Blade and Buddies wheels, which are tapered. They've got that face profile, so it's tapered and then flat in the middle. Those are also great for it. These were fine. I didn't get too many instances of wheel bite, but there were a few times when I was grinding on these and I heard the kind of rubber screeching, and it does put that panic in your heart for a split second. As I mentioned, I've been skating these for over a month now, and to be honest, I absolutely love them. I think they're brilliant. I've tried so many skates over the past 2 years, and this is by far my favourite out of every skate I've tried this year. By far. I would even go as far as to say this is one of my favourite skates from the past 10 years. This, as far as I'm concerned, is up there with the USD Sway and the Them 909 in terms of how I feel about the fit for me personally, the performance, and all the attributes that I look for in a skate. There's just one problem. This skate has a limited time span. I'm already getting a relatively deep groove in the frame, and I'm already getting quite a significant groove in the backslide plate. The groove in the backslide plate has just got to the place where I like it, but I can see that it's already getting to the very, very edge of what it's able to take. I can already feel underneath it that it's not going to be long before I wear through it and there's a hole in it, and then it's not going to perform as well, it's not going to look as good, and it's just going to go downhill from there. And that is kind of the crux of the biggest problem with this skate. It's very disposable, and that doesn't really sit well with me. Whenever I use a skate product, I either try to use it until it's absolutely useless. I've worn it down so much that it just can't be used by anyone else, or I try and give it more life. I try and give it to a friend, or I try and sell it on, because I don't like the idea of waste. And with the skate, it does feel very wasteful. Once you wear through the frame or the backslide plate, the skate is kind of done, and you can go through the process of taking the rivets out and putting on a new sole plate and frame, but then you have to find out which sole plates are compatible. You have to find the size that works with your particular size. Then you need to drill holes to make it fit. Then you need to get the frame, and that's a lot of work, especially when the whole point of this is designed to be really simple. Now, the same could be said for the USD Aeon, but the USD Aeon, the sole plate is much thicker and it lasts a lot longer. I don't know many people who've worn through a backslide plate of a USD Aeon, but I've only been skating these a month and I've almost worn through the backslide plate on these. Now, Duran at TNEC has been very transparent about this. He said this skate is for beginners, it's for people just getting into the sport, it's for hobbyists who don't take it too seriously and they just skate once in a while. But if you're like me and you do skate all the time and you find yourself really enjoying this, well, it's just an absolute shame that in a very short space of time, you can't really use them that much anymore. They're past their prime, because I am really, really enjoying this. In fact, this is up there with the USD Sway for me. I want to keep skating it, but after spending £200 on it, I'm worried that it's not going to last more than 2 months. In fact, I'm almost certain it's not going to last more than 2 months. I've spoken to Duran about this, and he said that they are planning on releasing the sole frame separately, so I really hope they do, because I have no problem whatsoever with popping out the rivets, putting on the sole frame and screwing them back in. If it means getting more use out of this, potentially getting a year out of it, and having a skate that's just a little bit more long lasting. In terms of where this sits in the marketplace, there are other skates that are cheaper than this in this bracket. So this comes in at around 200. You've got the Razor's Cult that's cheaper than this. You've got the USD Sway, you've got the Rossi's M12, you've got the Powerslide Reactor, and most recently you've got the Echo Verve. This is one of my favourites out of all of those. I definitely prefer this in terms of the fit and the performance to the Rossi's M12 and the Razor's Cult. In terms of fit and performance, it's up there with the USD Sway for me. I would say it's also up there with the Echo Verve. I just prefer the way this looks to the Echo Verve. In terms of look, I would say it's kind of on par with the USD Sway as far as I'm concerned. Even though it's not the cheapest, I still think it is an absolutely incredible option for anyone getting into aggressive skating, and I would thoroughly recommend it. And the great thing about this skate is the owners of TNEC own a skate shop. They own Beehive Skate Shop. So when someone comes in, they can recommend other brands, or now they can recommend their own brand. And I think that's one of the kind of golden genius aspects of this idea, is that they've created a product that they can market directly to their customers. They're not a skate brand that is either trying to sell on a website or trying to get sold in shops. They are literally on the shop floor speaking to their customers face to face and can sell them this product. And it's a very sellable product. It's very simple, it's comfortable, and you can turn this from an entry-level skate into a high-end skate by just putting great wheels on it and putting a great liner in the shell, because that's what most plastic skates are. They're generally of a very much a sameness in terms of plastic quality. They've just got additional high-end features. I've put additional high-end features on this and it makes it perform to the level that I want. And plenty of other skaters are treating this like it's not a beginner skate. You've got skaters like Michael Kraft, Sean Keane, Dan Robinson. I think I saw Russell Day was skating them as well. Those are not intermediate skaters by any stretch of the imagination. They are very good skaters and they are very much enjoying this skate. As I've said, I cannot say enough great things about this skate. I have loved using this. I'm going to keep using it, and it's definitely my favourite new skate that I've tried this year out of all the new brands. I'm just so concerned that it's got a shelf life and that the moment it kind of reaches, well, where it is now, it's pretty much downhill from here and there's no way to retrieve it yet. There's no replacement options for this yet. TNEC are now offering a shell-only option on their website, which is great. And they're also offering an option which comes with their own aftermarket wheels, which are much better than the stock wheels. But until they release the sole frame as an aftermarket product, you can't keep bringing new life into this and keep it going as long as possible, which is a shame because I don't want this to be the end as soon as I go through the backslide plate in the frame. I would like the option to keep using it, essentially. My recommendation for the TNEC 58, if you're a park skater, this will last you just as long as any other skate. If the only thing you're skating is skate parks and coping and angle iron, this will last ages. This will easily last you a year. However, if you're a street skater and you're skating a lot of ledges and you're skating frequently, I'd be very surprised if this skate lasts more than 6 months. I've been using it for a month. I've already got quite a lot of wear on it, as you can see, and I'll do another video in about a month or so you can see where it's at, but I'd be very surprised if this is even usable after 2 or 3 months of my particular brand of skating. But we'll see. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about the TNEC skate. What elements of the skate do you like? What elements of the skate do you not like? And speak to you guys soon.